In the old age of pharaohs, the Titans tyrannized the plain. Horrific primal urges made flesh. They served no master and rampaged without purpose. With nowhere left to run, humanity turned to prayer, reaching for help and offering their devotion. This prayer was desperate enough that it manifested into gods, who took on the Titans and banished them away into the underworld. For now, Pharos is safe. But should the shackles of the Titans ever be broken, the plain might be torn asunder yet again. Uro, Titan of nature's wrath, Croxa, Titan of death's hunger, and Flage, Titan of fire's fury. The three Titans of Pharos. And don't worry, these are not all three of the commanders we're talking about today. The three Titans each follow the same core mechanics. They are 6/6 Elder Giants for a fairly low casting cost, and they have a powerful effect whenever they enter the battlefield or attack. However, should they enter the battlefield normally, they will immediately sacrifice themselves. To get a Titan to stay on the board, they have to escape from the graveyard by exiling 5 other cards from it and paying 4 colored mana. I really like the flavor here. To wreak havoc, the Titans first have to escape the underworld. And wreak havoc they do. At their baseline, each of the Titans is an incredible beater, as 6/6 is simply bigger than most other creatures. They also rapidly accumulate value. Uro ramps and draws, Croxa nukes our opponent's hands, and Flage provides constant removal. At some point, I had a deck for each of them, and they were all incredibly powerful. Almost too powerful. I ended up disassembling Croxa because when my game plan worked, which was often, my opponents never had any cards in hand, meaning they didn't get to do anything while I slowly beat them to death. And I didn't really enjoy that because I always want to play with my pod and not just do solitaire while I wait for them to die. Similarly, I disassembled Flage because her sheer presence in the command zone prevented any other commanders with 3 or less health from ever hitting the field. I had so many games where I chose Flage as my commander, and then my opponents never even got to play because of her alone. Other creatures don't fare much better against her, especially when considering how easy it is to give her haste and double her damage in Boros colors. She was often the only creature on the field because she nuked everything else into nothingness. So while these two are very strong, I can't recommend them because they don't make for interesting games. However, the fairest of the bunch, surprisingly, and one of my own permanent commanders is Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Uro focuses on our own progression as opposed to suppressing our opponents, which I think makes for a more overall enjoyable experience. Uro is our first of 3 commanders that don't care about removal. Uro says that when he enters or attacks, we gain 3 life, draw a card, and may put a land from our hand into play. Early game with Uro is fairly straightforward. Mana Dork on turn 1, Uro on turn 2, and then we have 5 mana on turn 3. Think about his first cast as having a growth spiral in the command zone, adding a huge amount of consistency to any deck. Then we just follow our regular game plan, whatever that may be. As the game progresses, our graveyard is going to fill up naturally, and that gives Uro the fuel he needs to escape. It's also a good idea to incorporate a small graveyard filling shell with cards like Winding Way, Mulch, and Fetch Lands. And those don't have to be expensive fetch lands. There are many affordable and equally graveyard filling ones available. The classics of Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, the new Capenna cycle, or the Tap Fetchland cycle all help us in our goal to feed the big boy. Once Uro is on the board, all we need to do is attack with him, applying pressure while building up our own resources. And when the board is inevitably wrathed and Uro is returned to the underworld, he finds himself with a fully stocked graveyard, ready for a quick return. Since we're always playing him from the graveyard, we don't need to worry about command attacks. Uro will always cost only 4 mana and 5 cards. Of course, there's the possibility of Uro getting exiled. Swords to Plowshares jumps to mind. But even if that happens, it's not a huge problem, considering we are ramping every single turn. And since that's the only thing we need to protect him from, we can easily play around it. A normal quantity of counterspells and hexproof equipment will already do the trick. Swiftfoot boots and lightning grease are particularly fantastic here, since they not only give him hexproof, but also haste. Uro triggering both his ETB and attack trigger in the same turn is just... it's good. That's good magic. Unfortunately, Uro doesn't offer much of a deck building theme. Landfall would obviously be very strong, and a Graveyard Shell would give him a lot of food, but ultimately we can use him for whatever we want. So I recommend you find something a bit quirky, as he's so powerful that he can enable all kinds of shenanigans. My current version of Uro is my Simic Commander deck, which leans into the idea that every Simic commander does the same thing by sticking them all into the same deck. It's kind of stupid, but really fun to play, and yeah, it's not actually that bad. They do all kind of do the same thing. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Play whatever seems the most fun to you. Uro can support it all. Niv Mizzet might well be the oldest and most intelligent creature on Ravnica. A dragon so old, he predates history. A dragon so mighty, he eliminated all the others. The Firemind had no need to rise to the top of Ravnica's civilization. He was already there when it formed. And he was ready to defend it when the near-godlike planeswalker Nicol Bolas attacked. Their battle left behind harrowing destruction, tearing asunder large portions of Ravnica, and ended in Niv Mizzet's death. But only a fool wouldn't be prepared for such a minor setback. The 10 guilds of Ravnica came together in a rare moment of cooperation and followed the clues laid out by the Firemind to return him back to life as the living Guild Pact. And as soon as he was reborn, Niv Mizzet took on the fight with Nicol Bolas again, first slaying his enslaved gods and then fatally wounding the Horned One. Now, stronger than ever before, Niv Mizzet maintains the Guild Pact of Ravnica, protecting the plane from invaders and guiding it as the multiverse continues to expand. Our second commander that doesn't care about removal is Niv Mizzet Reborn. Niv Mizzet Reborn is a 6/6 dragon avatar with flying that costs WUBRG mana. When he enters, we get to look at the top 10 cards of our deck, and for each color pairing, we get to put a card from among them into our hand. In a deck built around him, Niv Mizzet can easily draw us 4 to 5 cards whenever he enters. And even if we put only limited emphasis on constructing with Niv in mind, it's very easy to still hit 2 or 3 cards. My personal list only plays 17 cards that Niv can find, and it still always feels totally fine to cast him. Digging 10 into our deck is just a lot, and there are many 2-color cards that we can incorporate into nearly any list that will perform excellently. Supreme Verdict is powerful removal that fights through counterspells, Growth Spiral offers easy to implement ramp, and Wadi the Skull doubles down on a wide board. Of course, we don't necessarily want all of these in the same deck. I'm just illustrating how easy it is to find good 2-color cards for any given list. And because this card draw stems entirely from an ETB, we don't care at all if Niv Mizzet gets removed, because that just means we get to cast him again later and use his ETB again. Niv Mizzet Reborn takes on an entirely different role from most commanders. Normally, we want to be careful when casting our commander, but Niv can be summoned when we are being careful. Him getting destroyed is actually the good outcome, and even if he doesn't get removed, we still get a 6/6 flying beater that quickly applies lethal pressure. But all of this is currently ignoring a bit of a problem that comes along with Niv. He is a 5-color commander that requires WUBRG to be cast in the first place. Of course, if you own fetch and shock lands or just want to proxy them, then this isn't much of a problem. But is it even possible to play this commander on a budget restriction? Absolutely. We just need to get help from an unexpected and very flavorful place. Gates. Gates are pretty mediocre lands that provide 2 colors but enter tapped. They've long had a reputation for being a beginner's trap, but in Battle for Baldur's Gate, they received some support that made them genuinely very good. To start, there was a cycle of 5 gates added, each of which generates one predefined color, but then lets its controller choose another, making for great color fixing. Heap Gate then allows us to turn unused mana into treasures at a very reasonable rate of 2-to-1, and Basilisk Gate can turn Niv Mizzet into an actual game-ending threat. But most important were the additions of Gaunt Gate and Baldur's Gate. Gaunt Gate is not only an untapped 5-color land, but also makes all of our other gates enter untapped, turning the gates into a spectacular mana base. And Baldur's Gate has an ability that costs 2 mana and then gives us a mana for each other gate we control. As soon as we have 5 gates in play, this starts going mana positive, essentially turning into Nyktos, Shrine to Gates. And because Baldur's Gate and Gaunt Gate are both gates themselves, they are really easy to find. When I build a gate mana base, I always include Open the Gates, Gatecreeper Vine, District Guide, Circuitous Route, and Crop Rotation. With these 5, it becomes trivial to ensure that our mana base is ready to support whatever our deck is trying to do. Of course, we could lean into this even more with Navigation Orb, Hour of Promise, and Scapeshift. Add a Maze's End while we are at it to have a secondary win condition against those oh-so overpowered life gain decks. Point being that gates offer a fantastic 5-color mana base on a budget, and they even come with some inbuilt additional utility and their own little ramp and consistency package. Just like Oro, Niv Mizzet Reborn doesn't offer too much guidance if it comes to a theme, so we have to figure something out for ourselves. My own version of the deck is what I like to call my deck full of games, which is full of voting cards and bidding wars and weird little interactions that you never get to see. The whole point of the deck is to get people to engage with Magic in a way that they aren't used to. It's not a Chaos deck, and it's not Group Hug, it's just kind of full of little mini games. It's a bit odd. It's a bit odd, but I really like it. And I use the alternate art Niv Mizzet as my commander because he looks like he's a dungeon master, and that's something that I really enjoy. In another time and another place, Rilsa Rael would be celebrated as a revolutionary. In Baldur's Gate, in her own lifetime, she's known as a crime lord. Born into poverty and immediately abandoned, Rilsa had to find her own way from the very beginning. She joined a gang at a young age and worked her way to the top, becoming a high-ranking kingpin of the Guild, a large criminal organization that involved itself in every facet of the social hierarchy of Baldur's Gate. Rilsa then ruled over the little Kalimshan district, running her businesses from there and organizing robberies on the rich to redistribute their wealth and create a more equal society by force. A few months ago, me and my friends did a deck exchange where we each pulled a name and then build a deck for that person. I thought this was a really interesting challenge because not only did it give me an opportunity to build a deck for somebody that I like, which is something that I really enjoy, but it also made me think a lot about my friends and my relationships to them. And I don't know, I'm really lucky. Magic has really helped me build some wonderful connections, and I'm very thankful for them. I knew that my friend really likes the initiative mechanic and was lacking a deck that was a bit lower to the ground and centered around fighting for board control. So that's what I set out to build, and Rilsa Rael, Kingpin, ended up being the perfect commander for it. Sort of by default, since she's the only commander that gives the initiative, but I also like the other attributes she brings to the table. Rilsa Rael, Kingpin, is a 5-mana Demir human rogue with Death Touch that gives the initiative when she enters the battlefield. The initiative has us exploring a dungeon, diving into rooms that provide us with various benefits, each of which trigger whenever we gain the initiative or if we have it during our upkeep. The first few rooms offer minor benefits, but the final room lets us dig through the top 10 cards of our deck and put a creature from among them directly into play, with 3+1/+1 counters on it and hexproof until our next turn, which can let us cheat out some very powerful threats. However, the initiative works like the monarchy. It can be stolen by dealing combat damage to us. That's why we want to be low to the ground, to always have creatures and interaction ready to prevent our opponents from taking the initiative or to take it back. Since Rilsa is also a rogue, I ended up building a rogue deck around her, relying on unblockable creatures to constantly chip in for damage and reclaim the initiative. Coastal piracy effects then maintain our resources and counterspells preserve our board. Rilsa takes a very patient role in this deck, as she only needs to be cast early if we haven't managed to get the initiative through one of our other cards. And then we don't mind if she gets destroyed, as the initiative is here to stay one way or the other. This is where her last effect, that I haven't mentioned yet, becomes very important. Whenever we attack, Rilsa gives one of our attacking creatures Death Touch until end of turn, which helps with breaking through defenses to get the initiative again. However, if we completed a dungeon this game, then Rilsa also gives +5/+0, Menace and First Strike, turning any creature into a deadly threat that can only be blocked at great cost. Rilsa doesn't really mind removal, because like the other two commanders we discussed, she's an ETB commander, but also because she's happy to wait until the late game to show up. We can be patient and play her after all our opponent's removal has already been used up, or we are easily ready to defend her with some counterspells. One cast to introduce the initiative, and another to close out the match. While I personally don't have this deck anymore, my friend ended up turning it into one of his permanent ones, and it's been terrorizing our games ever since. One of my least favorite things to happen while playing Commander is getting stuck in that loop of playing a Commander only to have it die, to then play it again, to have it die again, to play it again, and so on. This stems from decks that rely on their Commander heavily but don't have a good way of defending it. It's a trap that I see many beginners fall into, a trap that I was once victim to myself. But I've learned, and now I often build my decks with either very resilient or non-essential commanders, and I hope I managed to showcase some of those today. One that recurs itself, another one that is only an ETB, and a last that can wait until the late game. I feel that this style of commander makes for much more consistent decks, and that's something I personally enjoy. To be honest, I wish there were more cool commanders that relied on simple ETBs. Current design seems to be all about static effects, which is fine. I get why people enjoy that, but just slamming down a cool ETB and then being done with it is also sick. Of course, there's a wide range of commanders that are even more difficult to take down than the ones I listed, like the Revi, Yuriko, or the Maelstrom Wanderer, but I wanted to focus on some that are a bit less conventional. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I would definitely appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel here. We upload regularly, although I guess not really on a schedule, just regularly for now. I would like to get a proper schedule soon, but currently this channel is still kind of secondary to all of the other stuff we have to do. But soon this channel will become priority #1. So just be ready for that, right? Like right now we're just kind of warming up. We're just getting started, and then coming with the new year, this channel is gonna be my primary concern, which is something I'm actually really looking forward to. I hope you guys are gonna be here for that. Anyways, I'll see you guys next week or whenever. I'm not sure when the next video is done. Honestly, I don't even know what the next video is as I'm recording this, but I'm sure I'm gonna be able to think of something kind of fun. And yeah, so I'll see you then. And also maybe don't forget to check out our Friday streams we do around here. All right, goodbye.